I'm Kelly. Standing in the driveway of the mansion, I watched through the window as the Harrington family was in complete disarray. Their faces were a mix of shock, disbelief, and panic. Just moments ago, I'd dropped a bombshell on them, shattering their illusions and their precious business deal. It all started 3 years ago when I married Ryan Harrington. Ryan was a junior manager at a well-known finance firm, and I was a software analyst at a startup. The Harringtons were an old money family in the city, with a long-standing reputation in business and society. His father, Victor Harrington, was a domineering and arrogant man who built his fortune through shrewd business deals. His mother, Diana Harrington, was a socialite who cared more about appearances and connections than anything else. From the very beginning, I was an outsider in their world. When Ryan announced our engagement, the Harringtons were less than thrilled. They saw me as a girl from a middle-class family, someone who didn't have the pedigree or the wealth to be part of their prestigious clan. At family gatherings, I was constantly belittled. "Still working on that little coding project?" Diana would sneer. "Ryan needs a wife who can support his career, not someone who is always buried in a computer." Victor would chime in, "These young techies think they can change the world with their fancy apps. They have no idea how real business works." I had started a small tech startup from my tiny apartment right after college. It was called Novatech, and it was my passion. I worked day and night, often skipping family events to attend board meetings or work on important contracts. That only made the Harringtons look down on me more. "Working late again?" They'd mock, as if my hard work was a sign of incompetence. But little did they know, Novatech was quietly growing into something big. We'd developed a revolutionary AI system for predictive analytics, and it was getting attention from major corporations around the world. I'd incorporated the company under my maiden name, Lee, to keep it separate from my married life and to avoid any unnecessary complications with the Harringtons. It was Christmas Eve, and the Harringtons were hosting a big dinner party for Victor's important business associates. I was sitting alone in the kitchen, eating reheated turkey. The fluorescent lights made the food look even more unappetizing. Laughter and chatter were coming from the formal dining room, where the guests were enjoying a sumptuous feast. "You know, yesterday's food is good enough for some people," Victor had said loudly, making sure I could hear him. "We save the best for those who truly understand quality." Through the doorway, I could see Ryan chatting animatedly with his father's friends. A plate of delicious, freshly prepared food was in front of him. He didn't even protest when Diana suggested I eat in the kitchen so as not to disrupt the important networking going on at the main table. My phone buzzed on the table. It was Jake, my assistant. I almost didn't answer, knowing that the Harringtons thought taking business calls during family events was tacky. But there was something about sitting alone with this cold, congealed food that made me rebellious. "Kelly, I'm so sorry to call during Christmas, but I have some news that can't wait," Jake said, his voice filled with excitement. "Forbes just called. The list goes live at midnight, but they wanted to give you a heads up. You've made the Forbes youngest billionaire list. You're 30 years old and worth $1.3 billion. You're the youngest self-made woman on the list." The fork slipped from my hand and clattered against the plate. Ryan glanced over at the noise but then quickly turned back to his conversation. I whispered, "Are you sure?" Jake replied, "Absolutely sure. They want to do a cover story, and CNN and the Wall Street Journal have already called for interviews about the AI acquisition that pushed you over the billion mark. Your phone is going to be crazy in about 6 hours when this goes public." I sat there, staring at the sad leftovers. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The little startup I'd nurtured from the ground up had become one of the most valuable tech companies in the country. Not long after, my lawyer, who was also my uncle, Henry, called. "Congratulations, Kelly. Your parents would be so proud of you," he said warmly. I thanked him, thinking about how my real family had always believed in me, even when I was struggling to keep Novatech afloat, eating instant noodles and working 20-hour days. Henry asked if I'd told the Harringtons. I laughed bitterly and said, they're busy entertaining their important guests, and I'm here in the kitchen, eating yesterday's leftovers. He was silent for a moment and then asked, Kelly, why do you stay with these people? It was a question I'd been asking myself more and more often. Ryan wasn't always like this. When we first met, he was kind, supportive, and understanding. But over the years, he'd become more and more like his family, caring only about status and wealth. I sighed and said, Uncle Henry, can you prepare the paperwork we discussed? The post-nuptial agreement. He said, of course, but with your new status, you might want to consider other options too. I replied quietly, I know what I want to do. Just have it ready. Just then, Diana swept into the kitchen. Her designer dress rustled with importance. Kelly, we need more wine from the cellar. The good bottles, mind you, she said, then noticed my phone. Were you taking business calls during Christmas dinner? How terribly common. I calmly pointed out, I'm in the kitchen, eating alone, while you're all having a great time in there. And I know how important tonight's guests are for Victor's business. Mr. Tanaka is considering a partnership that could be worth millions, right? Diana pursed her lips. You've never understood our world, Kelly. Your little computer business is just a hobby. This is real business, about making connections and maintaining proper behavior. You should know your place. I thought about the hundreds of employees who relied on me, the revolutionary technology we developed, and the government contracts worth hundreds of millions. But I just said, you're right, Diana. I should know my place. She nodded approvingly, completely missing the irony. The wine, Victor specifically wants the 1985 Bordeaux, she said. I knew their wine cellar like the back of my hand, having been sent there countless times. Bottom shelf, right side, I replied. As she was about to leave, she added, and Kelly, you'll need to stay late to help clean up. The regular staff has the night off. I simply replied, sure. Someone has to do it. After she left, I heard Victor in the dining room, bragging about how he'd bought a small startup for a fraction of its worth. These young entrepreneurs are so naive. They have no idea how to negotiate, he laughed. At 8 p.m. Ryan finally came into the kitchen. Mom says you're being difficult about the wine. I told him where it was. He frowned when he saw my plate of leftovers. Why are you eating that? There's plenty of fresh food in the dining room. Dad said yesterday's food was okay for some people, but don't be so dramatic. You know how important tonight is. Mr. Tanaka could change Dad's business. I asked, and my presence would somehow stop that. He sighed, the way he always did when he thought I was being unreasonable. You just don't understand high-level business. It's not like your little tech thing. This is about real money and power. I wondered what he'd say if he knew that Novatech could buy his father's entire company 10 times over. I just said, you're right. I don't understand business at your level. He missed the sarcasm, just like his mother. Good. Just stay here until the guests leave, and try to look a bit more presentable when you bring the wine out, he said. I thought about my childhood, where my parents worked multiple jobs to send me to school, and the late nights I'd spent coding in a small apartment. Being called out for looking middle class by the Harringtons was almost a compliment. I said, I'll do my best. He left without another word. At 9 p.m. My phone rang again. It was Lily, my CTO and co-founder. Kelly, I know you're at dinner, but hold on, I'm not actually at dinner here. Besides, you're a billionaire now. Microsoft just called. They want to discuss an acquisition. They're talking $15 billion up front. I nearly choked on my water. 15 billion? That's just their opening offer. Henry thinks we can get $20 billion if we play our cards right. If you take this deal, you'll be worth more than the entire Harrington family combined. Times 10. Lily exclaimed. I looked around the kitchen. Tell them we'll listen, but don't leak anything until after the Forbes announcement. I want the Harringtons to find out who they've been treating like this. As I hung up, I could hear that the dinner party was winding down. Guests were putting on their coats and saying their goodbyes. Victor was booming. The Harrington family understands respect and tradition. Not like these new money tech people. No class, no understanding of hierarchy. I stood up, straightened my simple dress that Diana had once scoffed at, and went to the wine cellar. Instead of the 1985 Bordeaux, I grabbed a bottle of 1947 Dom Perignon that I'd stored there myself last year as a celebration for reaching $100 million in revenue. When I walked back into the kitchen, Diana's voice cut through the air. That's not the right wine, Kelly. She stopped when she saw the bottle. Is that 1947 Dom Perignon? I confirmed, yes, I've been saving it. It's worth $180,000. The kitchen went completely silent. Diana's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Ryan appeared in the doorway, his face as white as a sheet. I said casually, oh, did I forget to mention? My little tech startup has had some major achievements this year. I took out my phone and showed him the Forbes email. He read it over and over again, his hands shaking. This is a joke, Victor said, grabbing the phone. You can't be worth $1. $3 billion. I added, well, it could be more if the Microsoft deal goes through. But who's counting? By this time, the whole dinner party had crowded into the kitchen, including Mr. Tanaka. His eyes lit up when he saw me. You're Kelly Lee. Our tech team has been trying to get a meeting with you for ages. We want to license your AI platform. Ryan said weakly, that's my wife. Mr. Tanaka's voice turned cold. The wife you made eat in the kitchen? The wife whose little job you've been mocking? Do you have any idea what she's built? Novatech has revolutionized predictive analytics. Every major corporation in Asia uses their software, and you've been serving her leftovers. I opened the Dom Perignon with the corkscrew I'd learned to use while fetching wine for the Harringtons. Would anyone like a glass? But be warned, this wine is for those who truly appreciate quality. Diana's voice suddenly became sickly sweet. Kelly, sweetheart, there's been a huge misunderstanding. I poured myself a glass and took a sip. Really? What exactly did I misunderstand? That I wasn't good enough to sit at your table? That my job was just a silly hobby? Or that Ryan deserved better? Ryan accused, you never told us. I corrected him, I told you I worked in tech. I mentioned Novatech. I even invited you to our launch party, but you declined because it conflicted with your golf game. You just assumed I was nothing because I'm from a middle-class family. I took out the separation papers that Uncle Henry had prepared. As of tomorrow, I'm going back to using my maiden name, both professionally and personally. I was going to wait until after the holidays, but eating alone on Christmas seems like the perfect time to make a change. Ryan said, you can't be serious. We're married. What's yours is mine. Just then, Uncle Henry's voice came from the kitchen entrance. Actually, Kelly's prenuptial agreement is very clear. All her premarital assets and businesses remain separate. Novatech was founded before the marriage. I smiled at Uncle Henry. Perfect timing. He said dryly, I was in the area and thought you might need support. Victor turned purple with rage. This is outrageous. You've been lying to us for years. I challenged him, name one lie. There was silence. I told you I worked in technology, I told you I was busy with my company, and I even told you about our big contracts, which you dismissed as small-time projects. Ryan tried again, baby, we can work this out. You know I love you. I replied, "You love the idea of me being beneath you, the obedient wife who knows her place and never outshines you." Mr. Tanaka cleared his throat. Ms. Lee, I apologize for interrupting your family matter, but would you be available for lunch next week? My board is very interested in a partnership. I said, "I'll have my assistant call yours. But I only partner with companies that value respect and integrity." He bowed slightly. "I understand." Then he turned to Victor. "As for our potential partnership, Mr. Harrington, I think we'll explore other options." The Harringtons watched as their $1 million deal walked out the door, followed by the other guests who suddenly remembered urgent appointments. "You ruined us," Diana whispered. I finished my wine and said, "No, you ruined yourselves. Every snide comment, every act of disrespect, was your choice." I just stopped pretending it was okay. I gathered my things and left the separation papers on the table. "Ryan, I'll have my lawyers contact yours. The house is yours." I never liked it anyway. "I'll be at my penthouse." Ryan looked broken. "Your penthouse? You have a penthouse?" I nodded. 12,000 square feet with a view of the city. "I bought it last year when you said I didn't understand real estate." As I was about to leave, I added, "Oh, and that startup founder Victor was bragging about crushing? He's my new VP of development. He just needed someone to believe in him." Uncle Henry put a hand on my elbow as we walked out. "Are you okay, Kelly?" I took a deep breath of the cold December air. "Better than okay. I'm free." As midnight approached on the East Coast, my phone started exploding with notifications. Forbes had gone live early, and the tech world was going wild. But for once, I didn't rush to check it. I stood in the driveway, watching the Harringtons through the window, knowing that 3 years of being made to feel worthless were over. They were the ones who had been the real losers all along. Uncle Henry asked, "Where to now?" I replied, "Home. My real home, where people are treated with respect and where I don't have to prove my worth." And as we drove away, I saw Ryan standing at the window, holding the separation papers, finally realizing that the little tech thing he'd dismissed was worth more than his family's entire empire.